This is Cecil B. Moneygetter, host of Money Talks, a new financial news upload that is laser focused on digital finance, cryptocurrencies, robotics, electric vehicles, stocks, the cannabis industry, and much, much more. Tune in and join us every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at 7 p.m. Eastern on our Information Meets Execution YouTube channel as we bring you financial news uploads, one trending topic at a time. And don't forget to stay listening, because money talks.
Good morning. Today is Tuesday, June 6th, and you are listening to Money Talks. So we're first going to begin with the cannabis news. We're heading to Ohio. The countdown to Cannabis Ohio nearing start of recreational marijuana sales. On Friday, Ohio's 132 medical marijuana dispensaries will be able to apply for recreational sales permits, such as recreational marijuana sales. We want to make sure that our medical patients will be able to skip the lines and get priority care here, while we're still excited to welcome our adult users. The first sales of adult cannabis in Ohio will be allowed on this. We want to make sure that our medical patients will be able to skip the lines and get priority care here, while we're still excited to welcome our adult marijuana consumers, Carabello told 3 News. The first sales of adult use cannabis will be only allowed in states medical marijuana dispensaries that apply for the dual use permits using the existing framework of regulations that have already been in place since medical marijuana became legal in 2016. Meanwhile, state and local lawmakers continue to shape the rules and laws for recreational sales when the state cannabis program is fully rolled out in September. On Monday night, Cleveland City Council passed an ordinance that mirrors the state laws banning dispensaries from 500 feet of schools, churches, libraries, and playgrounds. It also limits dispensaries to designated retail districts in the city. It's still not clear when Ohio's adult use cannabis program will be fully implemented. The initiated statute laid out a process in which the new Division of Cannabis Control within the Department of Commerce has until September 7th to complete the rulemaking and licensing processes for non-medical cannabis. Sales of non-medical cannabis may not begin until licenses are fully issued and facilities are certified. It is worth noting that as an initiated statute and not a constitutional amendment, the Ohio. Next up, we're heading into the tech news. We're talking about Apple. This is why Apple's generative AI push won't launch an iPhone supercycle in 2024. We're less than a week from Apple's AAPL, Worldwide Developers Conference, which kicks off on June 10th at the company's headquarters in Cupertino, Calif. This year, the company is expected to unveil its big generative AI push with new capabilities for the iPhone. The moves are likely to energize investors who have been anxiously waiting Apple's foray in generative AI, but don't expect generative AI itself to spur a new iPhone sales supercycle this year. That's because when it comes to smartphones, users care more about the hardware than software. I don't think it's going to be the primary reason why people buy an iPhone, explained Thomas, Vice President in Principal Analysis at Forrester. It's more likely going to augment experiences. But that doesn't mean generative AI won't power iPhone sales in the coming years. That's because as phones age and become unable to run generative AI experiences, users will inevitably have to upgrade. People generally buy new smartphones for the hardware, not software. The typical consumer is not going to care about generative AI. They want to know the screen size, second is battery, third is camera. There's another reason generative AI on the iPhone is unlikely to get people to line up outside of their local Apple store. Many of the consumer offerings out there are still relatively basic. Copilot will provide helpful tips on how to fix common PC issues, and Google's Gemini for Workspace makes drafting emails easier. But by and large, there's no must-have generative AI app. Even Microsoft's AI are more interesting for their Qualcomm chips, which are supposed to rival Apple's own M3 processors, more than AI software they're named after. If you go to Joe and Jane Smith on Main Street and say to them, "Hey, have Gemini on your iPhone," now they're going to say, "Great, now what do I do with it?" And that's the intersection we find ourselves at right now. Apple will roll out a new smarter version of Siri that would allow you to control apps with your voice and transcribe recordings, new photo editing tools, and enhanced notifications, all powered by generative AI. Sure, making Siri useful will be a huge step in the right direction, though it will be interesting to see how often people end up using the voice assistant. After all, when was the last time you asked Siri to do anything other than set a cooking timer, or find out the weather for the next day. Transcription and photo editing tools would also be helpful, but Google and Samsung already offer those features in their own phones, and they don't seem to be driving sales. And it's likely Apple will have to offer its own take to transcription and photo apps. More importantly, we'll have to wait and see how iPhone developers end up using generative AI technologies to improve their own third-party apps. Think about it. You likely spend most of the time on your iPhone using third-party apps like WhatsApp, TikTok, or Gmail. The same will be true with generative AI-powered apps, but it'll take time for developers to get them up and running. Last up, we have the tech news. Japanese yen offers gains while US dollars advances as looming US NFP. The Japanese yen depreciates as investors turn to the USD ahead of the US NFP due on Friday. Japanese 10-year bond yields fell below 1% for the first time in 2 weeks. The US dollar may struggle as mixed economic data fuels speculation of rate cuts by the Fed. The Japanese yen retraced its gains on Thursday while the US dollar recovered its daily losses due to higher US Treasury yields. However, the rising speculation of an interest rate cut by the U.S. Federal Reserve in September could limit the upside of the greenback pair. Investors are likely awaiting key U.S. employment data releases on Friday, including the average hourly earnings and non-farm payrolls. Japanese bond yields have pulled back from recent highs, with the benchmark 10-year government bond yields falling below 1% for the first time in 2 weeks. However, Japan's real wages declined the 25th straight month in April as domestic inflation continued to outpace wage growth. This data will make it more challenging for the Bank of Japan to normalize its policy. The US dollar, measuring the value of the US dollar against 6 other major currencies, faced challenges following the release of mixed economic data in the United States. This has heightened investor sentiment surrounding the Fed rate cuts. According to the CME, the probability of a Fed rate cut in September by at least 25 basis points has surged to nearly 70%, up from 47.5% a week earlier. According to Reuters, while speaking to Parliament on Thursday, Bank of Japan Governor Kazuo Ueda stated that inflation expectations are gradually rising but still have yet to reach 2%, Ueda said. We are still scrutinizing market developments since the March decision as we process and exiting our massive monetary stimulus. It's appropriate to reduce bond purchases. On the upside, a key barrier is evident at the lower threshold of the symmetrical triangle. If the USD/JPY pair returns to the symmetrical triangle, it would reinforce the bullish bias and could lead to the pair to test the upper boundary of the pattern. A break above this barrier would support the pair in retesting its highest level in over 30 years.
Watching Money Talks on our Information Meets Execution YouTube channel. You can also check out the 734 Listening Library YouTube channel for self-help shorts and audiobooks. Follow us on Instagram at 734 Miscellaneous LLC to continue our journey of growth and success together. I'll see you at the top. Holla.